there, it's Carly. Welcome back to High Country Homesteading. Today we're going to be showing you how we built our brand new garden. The garden is about 1,800 square feet, and the original tilling for this garden happened back in Thanksgiving, but the actual build took place in about a week this May. So we're going to be showing you how we got all of this done. Hey guys, it's Carly. I'm coming to you at the end of day one of starting to build our garden. The end of day one because today was another pretty blustery day. I think we had gusts up to 40-mile-per-hour wind. So as you can probably tell by the state of this ponytail, so no talking to the camera was happening today. You wouldn't be able to hear me. But today was pretty much cleaning up the area, getting it prepped to make garden beds, and basically a test run of how we're going to do the beds. So we did one almost completely so that we could test it out, learn how to do it better, more efficiently for tomorrow when we start doing a whole lot more. So I'm going to show you around the garden, tell you about our plans a little bit. We had some exciting deliveries today so that we can get started, and I'm so excited to get this garden done. I cannot wait. We have about 2 weeks until our last frost date, so we are doing this just in the nick of time, but I'm so excited to get my seed starts outside. So let me turn this camera around and I will show you what we've done today and what our plans are going to be. So first we had two really exciting deliveries. We have all of our lumber that we're going to be using for our raised beds. These are 2x12s and they're all 12 feet long. And we also had 6 4x4 posts that we're going to be using for the corners of the fence as well as the gate. And then under those right here are 16-foot long cattle panels that we're going to be using for some arched trellises. Our other really exciting drop off was this huge dump truck load of compost. There's our big old pile of compost. The kids had fun climbing on this for a little bit, pretending it was a volcano. But we had this whole dump truck load from a local company of compost dropped off, and it feels really good. It doesn't stick together too much because we have mostly clay soil, and it does have quite a bit of mulch in it, but I know that will break down over time. So I'm pretty happy with it. I like the crumbliness. It's really nice and dark and rich looking, so I'm excited to use that. So let me give you an overview of what this garden space is going to look like. This space right here is about 30 feet by 60 feet. And so we've got about 1,800 square feet of garden we're going to be doing. So right here in this main space are going to be our long raised beds. You'll see the one we practiced on today. So this is a 4x12 foot bed. I loosely call it a raised bed, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but it's mostly an in-ground bed. Part of it is going to be more in-ground on one side than it is on the other side, and that's because we have a big slope this way as well as a big hill down that way. So we, in order to make each of the beds level so that rain doesn't wash all of the soil and all of the plants down the hill, we have to make everything level. So one side is going to be shorter, one side's going to be longer. This side's going to have a lot more compost and soil, whereas this side is going to be dealing with more of the clay soil. So it's going to be an interesting mix, and probably some strategic planning on things that I'm going to be planting on the more clay side, whereas things I'm going to be planting on the more compost side. So we have 3 beds going in here, 3 beds going in here. Like I said, they're all 4x12. We have at least 2.5 to 3 feet walkway space that's going to be around all of them. And then in the middle here, this is a 4-foot wide path, and there's going to be trellising with those cattle panels connecting each of these on each side. So there's going to be 3 cattle panels to connect the 6 beds, and you're going to be able to walk through. So that's the plan right there. If we walk through this way to the back of the garden, right here, I'm going to have a little table and chairs that will be a project for a little later on. Some really cute ones that I'm going to refurbishing. And then for this space right here is going to be my potato beds. So this is going to be regular, probably russet, gold, or red potatoes. And then on this side of the table is going to be sweet potatoes. This side of the garden is where our existing beds are, so these three are still remaining the same. I'm going to have a little bit of space right here that I could probably plant something tall. I'm thinking I'm going to do a row of corn here because the sun comes up from this way and goes over, so if I plant something tall here, it's never really going to shade the rest of the beds. So I think that would be a good place for that. And then on this side of the beds, where all this wood is, in this space right here is going to be a pumpkin patch, watermelon patch, just things for those squash plants that like to sprawl out. This large space right here is going to be for that. And we are going to have a fence all the way around, a 4-foot high fence around the whole thing because I want to try to keep deer out and my chickens, and we will see if that works out, but we're starting with a 4-foot fence. For the fencing, we picked up yesterday these 2 rolls of just wired fencing, and also T-posts are what we're going to be using. It's just going to be a simple fence. It's not going to be a pretty white picket one, but hopefully it will at least just do the trick. So if you remember from our video back in November, we had tarped this whole area to try to prep it for the spring garden. Now, the big mistake we made as novices, and we won't make again, is that we ended up putting a whitish clear tarp over this instead of a black tarp. And that was our big mistake. We were hoping to smother all the grass and weeds from growing, but it ended up being just a greenhouse effect because the light was able to seep through the clear tarp, obviously, and there was just massive clumps of grass growing underneath it. So it didn't quite do what we wanted to do, but I will say I did lay down cardboard everywhere that I was going to have one of our 12-foot raised beds, and the cardboard did a really great job at suppressing the grass and weeds. And I put layers of leaves over that just to try to compost in the cardboard. And because of our hill and because of how windy it is here, there's no way that the cardboard would have stayed in place without putting that tarp over it. So it was worth it in the long run, though it didn't do everything that we wanted it to do, but it at least kept the cardboard in place, and I'm grateful to have that weed suppression now that we're going to be putting the wood around it. So it didn't quite work out the way we needed it to, but it did help in some aspects. So let's talk about the beds. So we're doing the same idea that we did for the chicken coop. So we've run a string line this way, and we have a string line running that way so that we can make everything parallel with the house. Marshall would lose his mind if this garden was cattywampus to the house. He would give him a migraine. So there's no way he was going to let that happen. So we have everything going straight, perfectly parallel, so that we can line up all the beds with each other, make everything straight. So because we have such a slope, so like this area up here slopes down, and then this area slopes down that way. So this corner of the bed is going to be our lowest point, and this corner of the bed is going to be our highest point, which you see demonstrated here. So the way we've decided to combat that is to bury our wood in the ground. So if I take you over here, so you can see here, this is our highest point of the lawn. So this needed to be buried down. We buried this 8 inches. And so it tapers all the way up to over here to where that corner just sits on the ground and this corner sits on the ground. So this is buried 8 inches and then it takes an angle up this way and an angle up this way. So that corner and this corner are now flush to the ground. This corner is up, so that means we're going to be putting wood triangles under here and a little triangle under here to fill the rest of the garden bed. But everything else is buried so that this side of the garden is up about 4 inches, and that was really the lowest that I felt like I wanted to go. The reason, like I said before, that we needed to have boxes around each of these is because of the slope, and we don't want everything to wash away. So it has to be level. So this is really the best way to make everything level without having super high raised beds like these. These were so hard to fill, and I had to put tons of logs in the bottom and tons of bags of soil, and I didn't want to do that again. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the lower level, which is really only over here. Over here, it's going to be more than 12 inches out of the ground. So it gives a big variety of, I feel like, ways to grow things. So it's like half in ground, half out of the ground raised bed. So it'll be an interesting mix, and we're just going to see how it goes this first garden season. The last thing I'll show you today is these 2 Greenstalks. So I thought about putting another bed this same size right here, but then I thought this would be a perfect place for my Greenstalks. So I bought 2 of the 7 tiers. These 3 are the only 3 I have planted right now with just some cold weather things. So like there's spinach, beets, and carrots in here right now. So when it gets warmer out after my frost, I'm going to plant up the rest of that. And I'm going to put one right here that's going to be all strawberries. So Marshall leveled this area, and we just bought some cement pavers for it to sit on so that it would be flat. And we got this level so that the Greenstalk will be able to sit on those. And I think that's going to be a really nice place for them. The only other thing we have growing right now are these peonies. I think they're peonies, at least. I planted these last spring and they just didn't come up at all. They were completely dormant. And then in about a month ago in March, I saw these 2 popping up, and I had one of these potted outside in a different pot just hanging out over here. And then this one I actually started growing this year. I put this in a pot and I put it in my garage, my freezing cold garage, gave it a little water, and basically left it, and it's grown beautifully. So I transplanted these 2 in here. These 2 were existing from last year, and they're doing really good, and I'm so excited to hopefully get a peony. I think they take a couple years to get established, but they are in this bed, so I'm pretty excited about that. So tomorrow's day 2. We're going to be doing a lot more garden bed building, putting the wood together. There's going to be a lot of trenching and burying the wood in the ground. So after we get all of that done, then we can fill it with our compost, and then we can get started on the fencing and all the trellising. And I'm really excited to get this done. So I will see you in day 2. We're on day 2 of garden build. Marshall has kindly brought all of the boards. He's cut all of them and brought them over to where we're going to be putting them together. They're quite heavy when you put them all together, and we learned our lesson yesterday, so we're going to be building them mostly in place. So that's our goal today, to build all of the garden beds and then probably do a lot of digging. And then hopefully that means our next step will be filling all the beds with the compost. So let's get started. After building all the boxes, then we went one by one and made sure they were placed in the right place just to initially get started. So here I am with our tape measure, making sure that they're at least 3 feet apart from each other, and then took the longest part, which was making sure that each of these were level. So we had to continuously put levels on all sides, hike up the sides that needed to be elevated in order for us to get this level. So we had to get it level first in place so that we knew exactly where to dig. So this was definitely the most arduous part of the process, was getting everything level on all sides and making sure that the height was where it needed to be. But once we were able to get this in place, then we spray painted on the ground where we needed to dig, and that's when we dug out our trenches. So we started, of course, in the lowest corner. We dug to the depth that we needed. It was mostly anywhere between 6 and 8 inches, depending where we were in the yard. But then after that, we leveled everything so that the farthest point was ground level. So we had to taper the trench to become ground level. So we had to make sure we put a level down in that and made sure that was going the right way. It was tricky, but you know, by the end of it, it probably took 2 hours to get the first box done, but then by the last box it maybe took 45 minutes. Good afternoon. I think today is day 4 or 5, can't quite remember, of making the garden. We had to take a brief rain hiatus, but we're back at it. We have 2 of our beds filled with the bottom triangles, and now we're working on filling one of the beds with our compost because I want to get some of our cold tolerant seed starts out here and get some space back in my kitchen. So we are working on filling one of the beds over here, and I will show you the progress we've made filling them in with the triangles. Once all of the beds were built and filled in, we moved on to our arched trellises. So here's the 16-foot cattle panels. We just bent them into an arch shape. We put them on the outside of the boxes, so the inside of the walkway, just because we thought it would hold the tension better, and then we nailed them together with these U-shaped nails. Here is what our garden is looking like today. I am so pleased with this garden. I could cry. It makes me so happy, and I love absolutely everything about it. We still are getting the fence put up, and we need to build the gate. So we're working on that right now. And then we're also waiting on a delivery of wood chips so that we can put wood chips in all of the walkways and make sure that there's weed suppression going on there. But I am so happy. I've started planning out everything that I can. I still have a few more things to fill in, like tomatoes and peppers, but I am so excited to get this garden fully filled out and planted, see the flowers go, the vegetables come up, and see things growing on these trellises. I'm so excited for, and especially to put my little table and chairs in there and just be able to sit, have a nice drink on a hot summer day, and enjoy the bounty of this beautiful garden. So thank you so much for joining us. There's going to be so many more garden videos coming up this spring and summer, so please make sure you subscribe, and we will see you next time on the homestead.